Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 21 of Spirit of Le Mans, the review series where I'm evaluating the upsides and downsides of each purpose-built Le Mans prototype that features on Gran Turismo 6. So in this episode, as you can see, we're featuring the third and final version of the Pescarolo lineup. This is the C60 Hybrid, notable for being driven by multiple-time world champion rally driver Sebastian Loeb in, I believe, the 2005 Le Mans. Didn't actually win, but I don't believe Pescarolo's ever won the Le Mans. Well, they haven't won the Le Mans. But they always have a very strong presence at the Le Mans, and they're always very, very competitive. And this car in particular is a hugely popular prototype on Gran Turismo 6. So what's it like to drive? Well, let's go to the track and find out. So, being as it is one of the most powerful and one of the quickest prototypes on Gran Turismo 6, surely the C60 Hybrid is going to have a bit of trouble on city tracks. Well, that's what I was expecting, to be honest. I was expecting to give this car lower reviews, to be honest, than both of the other Pescarolo models, because, as with many other prototypes, I thought it was just going to be undrivable. Just wasting its power, just wheel spinning all over the place, but it actually turns out to be pretty good. Now obviously it does wheel spin, and you have to watch your throttle control and when you turn and when you brake a little bit more than with most of the other prototypes, but it's actually a lot easier to drive than many of the other prototypes that have a similar amount of power. Now in a straight line it has very similar performance to the Audi R10. Those two cars together, this Pescarolo and that Audi, are the two quickest prototypes in a straight line, but this one is by far easier to drive than the Audi. The wheel spin is much more controllable and the handling is much better. So for low speed handling, I am going to give it a 4 out of 5. For acceleration, not surprisingly, it's a strong 5. And for city tracks overall, it actually beat all of the other cars again. On the actual lap time. So overall for city tracks it's got to be a 5 out of 5 for this car. So that's it for Monaco. Now let's see how it fares on Ascari. Now although it is, as we just seen, a capable car on city tracks, it is obviously on more high speed tracks that you can really put all the power and straight line performance of the hybrid to good use, and Ascari is a great place to show off this car's potential. Now again, it's set a quicker lap than all of the other cars that have previously gone in this series, and it's a great car. Again, it was better than I was expecting it to be. For mid-range handling, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, so a little bit better than for city tracks. It does feel, like I said, more at home on a track like this, and the mid-range speed, it has a lot of grip. For overall drivability as well, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, because although it does take a little bit of learning, maybe for people who have less prototype experience, it doesn't actually take as long as you'd think with the amount of power that it has. It is easier to learn to drive and to drive well than, for instance, the Audi R10. It's a lot easier to master than that car. So overall, for technical tracks, again, it's going to be a strong 5 out of 5. It's a really, really good car. So that's it for Ascari. Now let's finally see how it performs on what we'd expect to be its real home turf, a high-speed track at Spa. Now, obviously, a prototype with nearly 1200 horsepower is going to be pretty good for high-speed tracks. But Spa is, although a high-speed track, not as high-speed as some, and we've showed this with some of the other prototypes which are very good in a straight line but still don't get very good times on this track because the corners are still important. Now the Pescarolo, as we said before, has the straight line performance of the Audi R10 but in a much more usable, much more drivable package. And that is what makes this Pescarolo so good. You can really use all of that potential, whereas with many of the high-powered cars you feel like you're only really getting the best out of them on maybe 1 or 2 tracks, whereas with this car, it will serve you really, really well on pretty much any track you throw at it. And although I've said that about other cars in the past, this car will do that and also most probably give you the quickest lap on those tracks that you throw it on. So whereas those other prototypes might be very, very good, this one is really good and the fastest on most tracks, which, or if not the fastest, obviously it depends on the driver, but among the fastest on every track, or pretty much every track. So unsurprisingly, for high-speed tracks, I'm going to give it a strong 5 out of 5. For top speed, come on, it does 295 miles per hour with low downforce. Of course it's going to be a 5 out of 5. And for high-speed handling, again, it's a strong 5 out of 5. Basically, the faster you go, the better this car gets. And that's what makes it so competitive and virtually unbeatable in online racing. Obviously, depending on your driver. So that's it for our actual track testing. Now let's go back to the garage for a roundup. So overall, the C60 Hybrid is one of the strongest contenders all round for being the best prototype. Now, in a straight line, it's equal or around equal to the Audi R10, but around corners, it's say equal to maybe a Peugeot 908 or something like that. So it's got a very good combination of straight line performance and real fast cornering ability. Now, I'd say the main downside, first of all, for this car is that it is, to be honest, still prone to a little bit of wheel spin, which is to be expected from a car with such huge power and torque. But that's not really the issue that I'm going to address as its downside. The downside is that because of that, you do have to have the downforce set very, very high. If you set the downforce any lower on this car, it does wheel spin a lot. And that's really the only downside to this car. Once you lower the downforce, it does, or its ability deteriorates fast. Now that happens with all the prototypes, but it doesn't happen quite so bad as with the C60 Hybrid, or not from the prototypes that I've driven anyway. But for its best upside, it's just so usable. All of its power, its torque, its performance, both straight line and around corners, is just so usable. As we said, on virtually any track, it will give you among the best, if not the best lap. In online racing, it's one of the quickest and most popular prototypes, and it's just a great all-round car. Now, if you check the video description for, as always, the ratings and laps that it achieved, you'll notice that I've given it the same rating as the Minolta. Overall 4.9 out of 5. And the reason why I'm giving it the same as the Minolta is that although it is quicker than the Minolta and overall better for more tracks, it is a little bit more skittish than the Minolta. So they work out to be roughly equal. They're both really, really good cars. But of the two, for a more experienced prototype driver, this definitely has the more potential of the two cars. It's just the low speed tendency to wheel spin that just stops it from getting that maximum 5 out of 5. But overall, if you haven't tried this car, I would strongly recommend that you give it a try. It will serve you very well. It's extremely quick. And as always, thanks for watching.